Yo, how's it going? ZookeeperChris here. Today we've got a speed build episode of this little desert biome room in the huge eco cruise boat ride that we've been working on. So join me for a pretty relaxed time as I commentate on the build process and let you know exactly what goes through my mind as I work on these projects. As we kick this episode off, I do want to quickly remind you that I make these builds while streaming over at twitch.tv/ZookeeperChris every Tuesday and Wednesday at 9 AM EST. So if you ever have any questions about these builds or want to chat with me about what it's like being a real zookeeper, be sure to drop a follow over there and come join us during one of our streams. We've got a great welcoming community and would love to see you there. With that being said, let's jump into the commentary for today's build. So right off the bat in this build, I am trying to get my lighting set up for this little room here. It is a desert biome, like I mentioned, so I figured lighting might be pretty important. I was trying to see if I could simulate the sun, and it took more lights than I thought it would. Originally, I don't know, I just didn't think it would take so many lights in this room. And another thing I was trying to do actually with these lights is get the desert looking sand on the ground, because with the sand that I'm using here in the biome that I'm working with outside of the ride, it looks more just like beach sand. It was too white, and so I wanted to get like the yellowy orangey sand. And I do have the Australia DLC pack, but the Australian sand, if I were building this first off, I'm not even in the Australia biome, so I guess that wasn't really an option. But that sand was just way too red anyways, if you know, I was kind of thinking about that. But anyways, I went with this lighting and it actually turned out really well. I found a good color that I was happy with, and I also knew that I wanted to do a little bit of rock work in this habitat as well. This build, and when I say habitat, I actually do not put any animals in this room. I probably could have put in like a monitor in here or something, but I may change my mind down the road. But as of right now, as I'm making this video, there's no animals in this room right here. It's more just like a scene that the boat goes through. If you're newer here and you have not seen our other episodes, be sure to check those out. This is one little section in our huge boat ride that we're working on. It's a boat ride inspired by a Disney ride in real life over at Disney World in Orlando, Florida at their Epcot theme park. It is a ride called Living with the Land, and I'll probably put a link to what that ride looks like in the description down below for you as well if you want to check that out and see where I'm getting my inspiration from. In the ride, they do have a little section where they go through a desert section, so that's kind of what inspired me to do this. And got Luna here on stream who wanted to come up and say hello to everybody. I've said before in another video that I made a little bit about Luna, and she has a super cool story, and we actually found her at the zoo that I work at. We got a call on our radios that there was a dog in the park, and from like soon as I heard them call to say there was a dog in the park, I was like, I need that dog. And she was super underweight and she was adorable, and long story short, we took her in and she is much healthier now, and she's best friends with our husky down there in the bottom right hand of the corner of the screen that you see. And Luna's and Lucy, the husky, they're always joining me on stream, and they're the ones that you always see in the little camera at the bottom right. Yeah, she's got quite the story, and maybe I'll go into more detail about that later on. But anyways, back to the build. Doing a little bit of work here with the siding. I didn't want just black walls in this room, so I wanted to do something with the blue skies, and here I'm going to probably be changing these bottom panels here to like a sandy color. Yeah. And then once I did that, I realized I didn't really like the straight line there in between. So later on, we're probably going to work on that. This is really funky. So here also, when I did the ceiling, it looks really gross. And I think it's just because it's the underside of the building. And so I spent a good bit of time trying to figure out how the heck to fix this, even though the odds of you looking up are slim to none when you're riding a boat ride like this, because you have a covering over the boat, and you can see me going through like literally every single color to see if there's one that looks better. But I think right there where it's yellowy, that's actually me picking the blue color, and it still looked yellow. So I think I gave up, and we actually go back to that later. Just looking at some random props that I was thinking about putting in, maybe like some bones and stuff, and we take a look at that later. I ended up not finding anything that I really liked. Don't know what the heck I'm doing with this light here. Oh, I was trying to see if the light, if I shined a light, if I pointed a light at the ceiling, I wanted to see if that would fix the color, and it doesn't. It still looks really gross, and you can see there with the sunlight, it is blue. That's the color I picked. It's crazy. I've never looked under, you know, a floor piece or a ceiling like that in Planet Zoo until this point, and wow, it's just crazy how different it is. So putting a bunch of different ceiling panels down, seeing if I like any one particular one better than the other, and just what I wanted to do for this room. So I was just kind of experimenting a lot with the roof and trying to find one that didn't look super ugly, even though, again, I'm probably the only person that would look up in this room and notice it. And yeah, it was quite difficult just going through every single floor piece. And I think we actually picked that one right there, if I do remember correctly. I think it's like a metal sheet thing. Yeah, metal. Just because I figured you could probably use that in real life as far as this kind of a build, doing this kind of a ride. And it didn't look too terrible from underneath as far as the blue coloration went, and whatever colors I was getting, I just figured that looked the best. So we settled on that for our roof, and again, I'm probably the only person that will ever look at that. But anyways, after that, we kind of just started looking at how to tackle the scene here. And again, I didn't want there just to be a hard line there, a hard split. So I got the idea of trying to make like little hills, little mountains, like there are in a desert. Like when you think of a desert, you think of the rolling sands, and it's not a straight line like that. So I was trying to think of different ways that I could do that, and it took me a really long time, way longer than I'd like to admit. And thank God this is sped up, and I cut a little bit of the just sitting there staring for a long time out. So I was trying with a bunch of different shapes, different colors. I even tried, you know, just seeing if the acacia tree, how that would look up on the wall as well. Didn't like a just random white acacia tree, and I didn't like just the shape of that really. Tried the top of the R there, and yeah, it was quite difficult, because another problem I was having was that the pieces that I was putting on the wall, I would pick the same color that the wall was registered as, but it would look different because it was a different material. So what I ended up doing was pick the same type of wall, which I think is plaster, and I took that piece there, which is also a plaster piece. And you can see me trying to line it up. I still see that there's like a break in there. I can't get it perfect. So what we end up doing is we end up adding a second wall to the front, a whole second set of panels to the front. And now we kind of get depth added to it as well, which was really cool. I loved the solution that I found for this problem that I was having, and it turned out really well, because you kind of just get an added depth of field for this here. And as you can see, it's starting to already look better than just plain hard line all the way through with those mountains in the back as well. So I was super happy with our solution that we found during the stream, and we actually use this later on in the build in another area as well, in a different scene, just because I just really didn't want to do black walls all around this area, and I just wanted to kind of paint the picture a different way that I hadn't done before. So this was really fun trying to find a way around this, and fun trying to get the creative juices flowing and figure something out. So, and I'd recommend, if you ever come into a roadblock with a build like this, sometimes you just need to put it down and go work on something else in your build. For example, if I got way too sidetracked or way too lost on this, I probably would have just done something else in the build and came back to this part, because, you know, this piece is always going to be here. I can always come back and work on this once I get a different solution going. So yeah, went with this, started looking pretty good. Didn't want to go too overkill with it, and then I think I realized, yeah, I saw the backside of it and I was like, oh, that looks gross. I was trying to find a solution for it, and you can see it game like was freaking out. And when the game started freaking out with the textures, I was just like, okay, I'm gonna come back to that later. And that's exactly what we did. I'm gonna come back to that later, and I'm gonna probably hide that some other way. So be on the lookout for that in a future episode. I'm trying to fix the edges around here, just get some little finer details sorted out with the, very corner of the wall pieces here, and starting to smooth out and add textures to the ground. It is crazy amazing when doing builds like this, and even doing your habitat builds, just how much difference the landscape looks when you start adding random hills and humps and divots into the ground. It just looks so much more natural. So if you are the type of person that normally just has flat ground throughout your entire zoo, I definitely recommend using the roughen up tool, and maybe not even going at a high intensity, just do like 50% to start or something, and just kind of pull it across the ground and see what you end up with. I think you will be very happy with just how much more realistic it looks. Putting some cactus in here. I knew this was going to be a bit minimalistic as far as this build went, or the scene I should say. So starting to work on a couple of rocks here and there, a couple of plants as well. And if you think about it, depending on what desert you're talking about, the desert in my mind that I was thinking of when I was building this, I was going more along just like the barren deserts. I know there's definitely deserts out there that have a lot of plant life and a lot more rocks and cacti, but that's I think the ride at Disney does not have much in it either for their scene. So I kind of wanted to stick with that, and I just wanted to stick with more of a barren feel. So got a few of the different types of cactus in here. I was also looking to the workshop to try and find maybe some skeleton pieces, like small ones. But unfortunately, a lot of the skeletons that were in the workshop are dinosaurs, and I did not want dinosaurs in the scene at all. I'm not a big dinosaur fan, so I just wanted to stick to a more realistic look here. And did not find. I was looking for more like an ox, not like an ox, but I don't know, something you'd be more likely to find in desert. I don't know, like a cow. I don't know. Anyways, I couldn't find what I was looking for. We'll just leave it at that. Get a little rock structure going on back here, kind of giving me those Pride Rock vibes, but I did not go with the full-blown miniature Pride Rock here. I just went with just a small structure, a small rockscape going on here. And it's always important when you're doing different rock builds, try and flip them around a bunch of different ways, upside down, sideways, and it's much better than just placing all of your rocks down flat in the ground. And it just gives you much more variety with the rocks that you're working with as well. It's almost like the rocks that we're given, you have so much more available if you just flip them all around. So kind of making some fine tuning here with our rocks, flipping them around different ways until I feel happy with the final product of what I see. And if you ever need inspiration, honestly, just go Google rocks, and I'm pretty sure you could find something. Or maybe like rockscape. That's probably another word you could search. Yeah, I would recommend doing that. One of the last steps here, I wanted to add some effects. Could not really find anything. I was thinking more like a dust storm effect going on in the back. Couldn't find anything I was happy with, but I found this like smoke here. I think it's like fog actually, or it might be, I don't know what it's called. I think it's either fog or smoke, but found it and I was like, that'd be a really cool transition piece. And then from there, went with the fog on the roof. I went with I was trying to go for like a cloud look. I didn't like the look of just sticking clouds up there, so I went with the fog, and I was happy with that, or mist, whatever it's called in game. And I was happy with that. I was a little nervous about it leaking on the top and out the sides. I managed to stop it from leaking the sides, but I just did not care about the top piece and figured if I want to hide it later on, I could. And that is pretty much it for this build, I think. It was, again, shorter build today, not crazy amount of detail. It's just a pretty barren desert. So with that, I want to go ahead and give you guys a couple of short scenes here of the ride going through it with the finished product. I think I may have added a couple more plants, like dead looking plants, in our final product since this point, but you get the gist of what this area looks like. I hope you guys enjoyed today's speed build. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to throw a like on it, leave a comment in the section down below, and subscribe. We post Planet Zoo videos on this channel every single week. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, stay wild.